Severe weather in Iowa is inevitable. Spring, summer, fall, and even winter. Dangerous weather conditions can threaten life and cause extensive damage to property. Tonight, we take a closer look back at our most recent severe weather event on March 5th, as well as December 15th, a day like no other in the history of Iowa's weather. How did this happen? And are severe weather events like this becoming more frequent or violent as a result of climate change? Plus, could a changing climate redefine what we have historically called Tornado Alley? Flooding can be more dangerous and claim more lives than tornadoes. Tonight, we will show you what new technology is making it easier for forecasters to prepare for flooding events. And in this age of disinformation, is there a real danger in getting critical weather information from unreliable sources? All this and more right now on Iowa's Forces of Nature, a Local 5 severe weather special.
And welcome everyone to our severe weather special, Iowa's Forces of Nature. Thank you for joining us. I'm Local 5 Chief Meteorologist Brad Edwards, along with my very skilled team of meteorologists.
Yeah, I'm Meteorologist Brandon Lawrence.
I'm Taylor Knust.
And I'm Dave Downey.
Yeah, we've had some crazy weather lately, guys. I mean, the last 6 months or so have just been unbelievable.
Yeah, kind of tired of historic events happening every single time we have severe weather.
It seems like it, right?
Yeah, and it seems like the severe weather has been more prominent than winter, which we didn't really have much of beyond that one big snowstorm.
Yeah, December 15th, 63 tornadoes. A month later, over a foot of snow on it.
It's really mind-blowing how much crazy weather we've had out there. So let's begin by taking a closer look at the extremely severe and destructive events that have hit central Iowa.
Violent winds. Homes flattened. Lives changed forever.
We were hunkered down in the basement, and it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced.
It's not uncommon for Iowa to get tornadoes in March, but this was different. The tornado that struck Madison County was only the state's third EF4 in the month of March. Its 70-mile track was Iowa's longest tornado track in nearly 40 years. From Winterset to Norwalk, Pleasant Hill to Newton, cleanup efforts continue, and many are just grateful for their lives.
We're all alive. We're all safe. This is all just stuff.
Sadly, 7 Iowans lost their lives on March 5th, 6 in Madison County and 1 in Lucas County, where a separate EF3 tornado left its own path of destruction. In all, 13 tornadoes have been confirmed in Iowa on that day. And all of this came less than 3 months after the last unprecedented storm, the December derecho. It was a day like no other in the recorded history of Iowa's weather. On December 15, 2021, an extremely powerful low-pressure system brought a plethora of weather phenomena. Records were shattered that dated back nearly a century and a half here in Iowa. It was really a case of the warmest December temperatures on record clashing with the winter's intense jet stream energy. All but 2 counties in Iowa had some type of severe weather warning issued, also a new record. In all, 118 severe thunderstorm and 71 tornado warnings were issued. And there is no doubt that each one of them was warranted as another record was shattered.
The most notable one is that was the most tornadoes that occurred in the state of Iowa in a single day. We currently have 63 tornadoes that we've recorded on that day. The previous record was 35.
That's right. We nearly doubled the old record set on a summer day in 2014. Of those 63 tornadoes, 21 of them were EF2 or stronger, which is yet another record. Before this epic storm, the state of Iowa had only recorded a total of 5 December tornadoes since 1950. This powerful storm system wasn't just rare, it was literally one of a kind. It was the first and only derecho ever seen in December, not just in Iowa, but anywhere in the United States. However, this wasn't like the derecho we had back on August 10th of 2020. That was a progressive derecho, while this one was a much less common serial derecho.
Typically, serial derechos develop ahead of a cold front, and they move with the same speed as the winds in the atmosphere surrounding the storm, which is why we saw storms and tornadoes moving at 60, 80 miles per hour, in some cases even higher.
Okay, let's compare the derechos out there. Going back to August 10th, the progressive derecho, that was the costliest thunderstorm complex we've ever seen here in the United States. This last one, about $2 billion, which is pretty impressive considering it was mostly in Iowa. 770 miles to 320 miles for the track. It was twice as long with the progressive derecho. And then the tornadoes, not even close. Over 100 tornadoes. They're still counting them up, in fact, for December 15th. And you look at the wind, though, that was the classic derecho, 126 miles per hour. This one had much less wind at 88.
A lot of people are wondering if such an incredible weather event can be tied to climate change.
Climate change influences really all weather to some extent, but other factors also play into how the atmosphere behaves. While climate change can increase the odds of such a storm, climate scientists will need time to study and to quantify the influence that climate change had on the December 15th event.
I have to agree with Chad there. It's really hard for a meteorologist or climatologist to really answer that question. But I personally feel that we have been seeing more of those extreme and unprecedented events over the past couple of decades, and I've been here about 25 years. But later in the show, Local 5 meteorologist Dave Downey will take a closer look into that very question.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way, that we've seen more unprecedented events. And as Iowa's weather continues to change, the way we communicate about severe weather has also changed. Now, one thing that really has remained the same for a very long time is outdoor warning sirens. Now, of course, while people still rely on them, some experts say it's not the best choice anymore. A familiar sound alerting you to severe winds or a possible tornado. Once a useful warning system for workers in the field or families at a weekend ball game, the technology is now outdated.
It's very hard to maintain a siren. It's very hard to get the parts. It's very hard to keep them operational. And so part of the issue is they'll malfunction. They won't go off when you need them to go off.
They're expensive too, ranging from $25,000 to $30,000 a piece. More than 160 outdoor warning sirens exist in the Des Moines metro alone. But with so many new ways to get information about incoming severe weather, they're no longer the first line of defense.
They do provide a role. I think there's an expectation by many in the public that they are a part of that tiered approach.
In other words, relying only on sirens for information about incoming severe storms is no longer sufficient.
I don't believe anybody should rely solely on the outdoor warning siren system. Yes, it plays a role, but there are many other reliable, more informative warning systems out there.
Too often, storm victims share stories of surprise after severe weather, saying they were unprepared for storms because they never heard the siren.
The siren, if it's there and it's operational, should only be used to drive you to another source of information. Something else should have already alerted you before that siren went off.
In an era of social media and technology, tools like the We Are Iowa app, NOAA weather radios, and wireless emergency alerts are far more beneficial to keep you and your family safe. Now, there are actually, Brad, some communities in Alabama that have altogether decided to get rid of their outdoor warning sirens in favor of public people getting their alerts on their phones instead. I did ask the Polk County Emergency Manager, A.J. Mumm, if this is something being discussed here locally, and he said while the conversation has come up a couple of times before, there's no plans to get rid of the warning system.
That's really interesting. I mean, things are evolving out there, especially with everybody having a phone in their hand out there.
Right.
All right, coming up, Tornado Alley is a common term used to describe where tornadoes frequently develop, why it may be an outdated concept.
Plus, from hotter temperatures to increased drought, climate change is making a mark, how it's impacting extreme weather events.
But first, some weather trivia. What month has brought Iowa the most tornadoes? We'll have the answer when we come back.
All right, before the break, we asked what month in Iowa has the most tornadoes? The answer is June. The second most active month for tornadoes is May. Now, Taylor, Tornado Alley is typically associated with states, in the Great Plains, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, but
yeah, that's what we grew up learning in school. But there is a recent study that shows tornadoes are now less common in the plains and are more frequent in the Midwest and the Southeast. Dr. Victor Gensini is not just someone that studies storms at Northern Illinois University, he also chases them.
So I go to the Great Plains every year. I travel 10 to 15,000 miles in search of these supercell storms that are, native to the Great Plains and also the Midwest, including Iowa.
Over time, he's noticed a pattern shift.
The number of tornadoes seemed like it was becoming lower than in the past.
He decided to make this the focus of a study, and it turns out his suspicions were right.
The results were pretty clear that the number of tornadoes in the Great Plains in the last 50 years have decreased quite a bit from where they used to be in the 1970s and 80s.
What may have been more surprising is the number of tornadoes rising farther east.
Places like Tennessee, Mississippi, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and portions of the Midwest.
Researchers are now trying to determine what exactly is causing this shift.
Is there this sort of cycle that's happening, and we just happen to be in a cycle that supports more environments and more favorable tornado conditions further to the east? Or is this something that our climate models have been actually suggesting will happen in the future, with a drying out, a more arid climate in the southern Great Plains?
So for now, we can't say for certain whether or not Tornado Alley is shifting. In fact, Dr. Gensini isn't a fan of the term Tornado Alley in the first place.
Because I think Tornado Alley leads people to believe that there's a very confined place where tornadoes happen, right? And we know that despite the calendar day, despite the geographic location, including all 50 U.S. states, tornadoes can happen in any of those. All that you need are the favorable conditions for these tornadoes to occur, and they can happen on any day of the calendar.
Yeah, Dave, we certainly know from recent experience that tornadoes can happen any time of the year.
Yeah, like Dr. Gensini said, March 5th tornadoes, the December 15th derecho with all those tornadoes embedded, really fresh in our minds. So it begs the question, how unprecedented are unprecedented events now? Is climate change making an impact on severe weather events, particularly in these cooler months?
Climate change points to at least some signals that would be in support of increases in severe thunderstorm activity in general within these off-season or cool season months.
Dr. Jeff Trapp's observation isn't surprising. Warmer air can hold more water vapor, which can increase the energy in a storm. There are two primary ingredients needed for severe weather of any kind to form.
One is structure in the atmosphere and temperature that contribute to what we call CAPE. It's a form of energy. And then the other is changes in wind speed with distance above the ground that we refer to as wind shear.
When both of those ingredients are present and in sync, that's when the strongest storms have the best chance of forming. Researchers are gaining a better understanding of what a warmer future could mean for storm energy and wind shear.
We see increases in the values of CAPE and also increases in the frequency of high CAPE, this high fuel. In contrast, and this is consistent with sort of our theoretical understanding, we see general decreases in vertical wind shear, but not enough to really put us to that tipping point where we would expect no longer severe storms.
Along with a general increase in energy available in the atmosphere, we're also seeing cool season tornadoes become more common.
If you look at December and January, we in fact see an increase in tornado occurrences.
In the past 8 years, there have been at least 10 days that spawned tornadoes between November and March. 4 of those saw over a dozen twisters. But the bottom line is this.
The ingredients that would more likely be present in a future climate would be more apt to form in kind of out of season or cool season periods of time rather than kind of the traditional warm season in the traditional places as well.
Yeah, good stuff there from Dr. Trapp. Even though cool season tornadoes are becoming more frequent, there has not been, at least he hasn't seen a jump in nighttime tornadoes. Those nocturnal tornadoes can be up to 2.5 times more deadly than daytime twisters.
Yeah, those are scary situations. Definitely important to have warning information, whether it's by the tornado sirens or your phone, to be alerted while you're asleep, or definitely during the nighttime.
Yeah, have multiple ways
Yes.
to receive those warnings.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, let's talk now about flooding. Some lessons learned from the floods of '93 and '08, how the Iowa Flood Center is preparing Iowans for the next big one. But before we go, here's our next trivia question. How many tornadoes does Iowa average per year? The answer after the break. Before the break, we asked you, how many tornadoes does Iowa average per year? The answer is 50. However, last year was well above average with 114 tornadoes across the entire state. Here's a map of the entire nation and what they average annually for tornadoes. And Iowa ranks 8th nationally for average tornadoes per year. Number 1 is Texas. It's a big state, so they get more chances to see tornadoes. You also have in the top 5 there Florida, Oklahoma, and Kansas. So the typical states that you typically think of being tornado-producing states are in those top numbers. But you can see the Southeast and Midwest, as we discussed earlier, can have plenty of tornadoes annually as well. So, of course, tornadoes get a lot of attention during severe weather season, but in a state bordered by rivers, flooding should always be at the top of our minds. Believe it or not, flash flooding is the deadliest of all severe weather hazards, which makes forecasting it so important.
Ask any Iowa meteorologist what the biggest weather threat is to the state, and the answer will likely be floods. That was certainly the case in 2008 when one of the state's costliest floods on record inundated much of eastern Iowa, including Cedar Rapids. Frustration brewed following that event.
The name of the game was lack of information.
That motivated state legislators to establish and fund the Iowa Flood Center at the University of Iowa. Since its start in 2009, the Iowa Flood Center has led the charge to improve how our state prepares for flooding.
Monitoring of streams and rivers, developing flood inundation maps, improving forecasting of stream flow and therefore flooding, sharing our expertise with the people of Iowa.
The Flood Center's greatest accomplishment to date is the creation of the Iowa Flood Information System, a one-stop shop for both decision makers and the general public.
The system integrates information not only from our sensors and our forecasting systems, but also information that the federal agencies share in real time.
At the time of its inception, this online portal was the first of its kind in the entire world, and it has proven to be a huge success.
So far, the system has been used about 4 million times.
So successful that it has served as a template for several agencies both in the U.S. and in Europe. As climatologists project an increase in Iowa flooding in the future, the Iowa Flood Center's work will only become more and more important as time goes on.
The concerns about future, climate bring the importance of our research and then improving all these, systems that I was talking about.
Since 2009, Iowa Flood Center has installed nearly 300 bridge sensors that monitor water levels across the state.
Yeah, in the future, they hope to create a statewide hydrometeorological network with real-time monitoring of rainfall and soil moisture. Still ahead, you've probably seen posts like this before on social media, why clickbait is making the world of weather forecasts cloudier than ever. We've shared a lot of information with you tonight, and of course, information is one of the benefits about predicting severe weather nowadays. We have tons of it available to us, and while it is so great to have access to forecasts and weather information at our fingertips anytime, we are also seeing challenges with this as well. Sometimes too much of a good thing can cause problems. Whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or even Reddit, it's not hard to find weather information in a pinch.
This is a serious system that's living up to the hype.
Hopefully that information is coming from a trusted source, like your favorite Local 5 meteorologist or the National Weather Service. The source of the information is important because some weather forecasts out there cherry pick worst case scenarios just to get your clicks.
We live in an age where anybody with a cell phone or a web camera, a YouTube account, can really, and especially with some of the production software and stuff that's out there, that they can make it look very legitimate.
Some of those so-called weather forecasts seem obviously misleading. So why is it that many people still fall for them?
I think people who are looking at social media, who are looking at the internet in general, are always looking for, the outrageous, extreme types of information.
Choosing reliable ways to get alerted to potential dangerous weather can help keep you and your family safe and informed, meaning it's best to directly access the We Are Iowa app, Local 5 on television, or the National Weather Service's website after you see weather information on social media.
For a lot of people, it'll be the first time they get the information about the weather, and they'll then turn to a first alert mechanism, either the television or some other alert notification system, to confirm what they've heard on social media.
And while tremendous strides have been made in weather forecasting, keep in mind the science isn't perfect. There are usually a variety of factors in the atmosphere at any given time that can make or break a weather forecast. So determining whether or not it will storm in your backyard at exactly 3 p.m. on a summer afternoon is not very feasible.
We expect this tremendous accuracy at a customized level, and sometimes as much as we want that, that's just not always possible.
By selecting reliable forms of weather information and understanding some of the challenges still existing in weather forecasting, you'll be better equipped to prepare for severe storms in the future.
All right, well, welcome everyone. We are post-game mode right now.
Yes, relaxed without our ties, at least two of us are.
Yeah, so what you watch there, we have different clothes on. That was recorded. We're here now live on YouTube with Brandon. He's at home right now. He's got to get up really early, don't you, Brandon?
Yeah, what you don't see is that I've got weather polo on top, but I've got pajamas on the bottom. So here I am over Zoom.
I think it's past his bedtime.
It is, yeah. He's getting some overtime today. But so welcome everybody here to the YouTube channel. We are going to answer your questions. We've had a lot of questions already coming in tonight. And we got to do a shout out to Sharon, who has been kind of a fan of ours apparently.
Yeah, giving us some love on our text line. So what's up, Sharon? Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Let's remind people of that text line real quick if you have a question.
Oh, yeah.
515-457-1026.
And maybe they can super that, put it up there, but yeah. So Brandon, you want to start things off there in Ankeny?
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of the question that we got and that we always tend to get is what got us into weather? You know, everybody always likes to ask meteorologists that, so it's not necessarily a question about severe weather. But I would bet for most of us, it was some sort of severe weather or big weather event. For me, April 27th, 2011 was a huge day in the Southeast. That was when there was a massive tornado outbreak in Mississippi and Alabama, actually 3 days in a row that week. April 25th, 26th, and 27th of 2011 all had tornado events in the Southeast. And that was a week when I was still actually in high school, but we had to shelter in the hallways at my high school in Tennessee 2 days in a row for tornado warnings, which I had never really seen that happen 2 days in a row. And it was that week, that huge outbreak that got me into weather.
All right, let's go down the line real quick here.
Okay, so I have vivid memories of this storm affected Iowa as well. I grew up in Nebraska. We had a week off of school in October for a massive snowstorm in 1997. And that was my first vivid weather memory. But summer of 2008, it was a nasty summer of severe weather that was just nonstop. It kept canceling all of our baseball games. So that really got me like thinking, hey, I might want to do this for a living.
Yeah. Well, mine was, it wasn't one event. It was really growing up outside of Des Moines, out by Earlham in the country. Not a lot to do
Country
out there.
boy here.
Country boy, small town boy. Thunderstorms were a big deal, and my dad was very interested in the weather. In fact, he would have been a meteorologist had he had the opportunity, I think.
Yeah.
So it kind of rubbed off on me, and I'm a scientist all the way through, but weather is awesome. So we'd go on the roof and look for thunderstorms. I mean, be like, there's one developing off there. You know, once they got close, we'd get down sometimes. But yeah, well, I just love.
Sometimes.
I love the power of thunderstorms, and today, even to this day, they're just like a pastime for me to enjoy them.
Nature's ultimate power.
They really are, yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, so Midwest.
Yeah.
In 2012, June 29th, 2012, got to 97 that day, and we had our own derecho.
Oh.
Yeah, the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic derecho of 2012. We didn't have power for about 2 weeks, and that was the oh wow moment.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Those are the hooks out there. So let's see if we got any questions. You got one, Dave, that they've been coming in on?
Yeah, how far in advance are warnings for tornadoes and other severe storms? That's a good one.
Yeah. So we're always trying to improve that, right? And it's not us, really. It's the National Weather Service that issues those warnings. We just pass that along. But I believe the average lead time for tornadoes is about 15 minutes or so. Back in March 5th, they were actually longer than that. So big time kudos to our local Weather Service office. I'm not sure for severe thunderstorm warnings, would you guess 30 minutes maybe on average, or you know, it varies.
It depends, because sometimes there'll be a report of hail that triggers the warning, so it's already a severe storm sometimes when they issue it. But when it comes to life-threatening weather, I think they are ahead of the game. You know, they really are. If there's wind developing inside of a thunderstorm that could be damaging or dangerous, they usually issue it, like you said, 10, 15 minutes in advance.
You think about the December derecho, they were issuing those way out ahead of, because they knew they were producing severe winds. When they're very confident, they'll push it out 45 minutes in advance if they have to.
And that's the hardest part, is when you have the first one, sometimes it pops up and it's like catches people off guard a little bit. I mean, we have the radar, obviously Doppler radar is like, you know, it's like an X-ray looking inside the storm. But yeah, so it varies from storm to storm.
And one key thing about those warnings, remember after the August 2020 derecho, they changed the whole, you know, wireless emergency alert system. So now your phone doesn't go off just if there's a tornado warning. If there's 80-mile-per-hour winds within that warning, it goes off. I think 2.5-inch diameter hail, it goes off too. So it doesn't just come down to a tornado for you getting those alerts. It can be other stuff as well, especially after August of 2020.
Those go off for flash flood warnings too.
That's right. Yeah.
So and for snow squall warnings in the winter. So it's really important. You know, if you're familiar with getting like an Amber Alert that goes off on your phone and it really is very loud, it's important to have those on, because that's probably one of the fastest ways to get warnings now.
Okay, so what is the strongest tornado ever recorded or seen in Iowa? We've had several.
We've had several F5s or EF5s. Most recent was Parkersburg back in 2008. I do not know if any of those specifically had the highest mark. Do you?
It's really, I don't know, because we go to EF5 or F5 back in my day. There was one in 1976, and some people that are watching might remember that. It hit Jordan, Iowa, a community that doesn't exist anymore, by the way. It was an F5, and along with it was an F3. So it was an F5 and F3 side by side, and it was a horrific storm, and it wiped out this small town of Jordan, Iowa in 1976. And a lot of these big tornadoes happen in June too. A lot of them do anyway, the larger tornadoes. But I'd say, you know, we've had about 3 of them that are kind of equal. And when it gets up to 250 plus miles per hour, how do you discern, right?
Right.
It's hard to say.
And you know, the estimates of these ratings, you know, back in the day may not have been as precise as what we get nowadays. So it's hard to know for sure.
Does anybody know how many EF5s we've had? Is it 3 or 4 that we've recorded?
I think it's like 5.
5.
Yeah, 4 or 5. Yeah.
Brandon, have you got any more questions that you can see there?
Let me see.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I've got a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, read what you got, because I don't have them all pulled up.
Yeah, from Cesar on YouTube. Is it true that topographic conditions in the city of Ames help to avoid tornadoes? What is the bubble I keep hearing? I have 2 words for that.
Such a good question.
New Orleans from last night. About the whole tornado, like, oh, they avoid big cities. Nashville in 2020, Dallas in 2019.
Oklahoma City.
I know. Yeah, so that's an urban legend.
It is.
Yeah.
I know so many cities where people say that exact same thing. There's a bubble over Omaha. There's a bubble over Lincoln, Nebraska, and they have their own reasons.
The bubble will be burst someday.
Yeah.
I think what people need to remember about tornadoes is the path is relatively very, very small. So if you take the state of Iowa, say the state of Iowa is the size of your living room, you drop a hair on your living room floor, that's the path of a tornado. It's very, very small compared to the state or wherever you're at, the county you're in. So it may not seem like they're hitting every area, but they are eventually, I think.
Yeah, the topography is not playing a role in Ames, to answer your question. You know, I know there's a little valley there, you know.
Well, in Winterset we saw that those people were in a valley.
Yeah.
Especially with larger tornadoes. I can see a smaller tornado staying closer, maybe skipping over a valley, but larger tornadoes they just have a mind of their own, and it did go down in that valley.
Yeah.
In Winterset.
Yeah. And
so, guys, a couple of good questions that have come in. One that is a really interesting one, and I don't like to speculate a lot, but it says from Tim, we have tragically been seeing more people injured and killed in severe weather because of lack of reinforced shelters. Do you think that building codes need to be updated to require shelter areas? And Tim, my thing there is that kind of gets into a policy thing. And I don't feel like I'm super qualified to talk about policy. I like to talk about weather, but I am a firm believer that sheltered places should be marked in as many public facilities as possible. If you go to the Des Moines airport, for example, certain buildings or certain rooms will have a sign that says tornado shelter area. I personally would love to see that everywhere. Yes.
I feel like
whether or not that should be mandated, I don't know.
Like all the mobile home parks that are out there, or the modular homes that are a little bit step up, but still any home like that doesn't have a basement, those communities, they should have facilities like basically a concrete building for people to go in. It doesn't even have to be below ground as long as it's built to a strong code.
Yeah, the only comparison I can kind of make to this is, I went to school in Miami, so the kind of the hurricane building code thing comes up a lot down there. After Hurricane Andrew in 1992, all of the building codes were changed across South Florida. So I'm not saying that, an event like that needs to happen, but about the whole communities that need a tornado shelter, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. They have to have somewhere to go because it's so unsafe to be in those buildings that don't have basements, and also the houses that may not be quite as strong.
Yeah, you mentioned modular homes. It only takes an EF2 tornado to take those off the foundation. Okay. Those are not as secure as maybe.
And that means all the walls are gone.
I mean, all gone. So they are relatively cost-effective homes for some, but it is a danger. So that's another good reason to have a shelter nearby, not just rely on that modular house.
Okay. Who has the next question? Dave, did you have one?
Cindy, besides Iowa, which other state has the drastic weather changes?
Well, Iowa's pretty good. I mean, it's anywhere around Iowa, too.
Yeah.
I mean, really, for changing weather and for extreme weather, I mean, this is one of the places that I think that's why we all kind of like it here. It's the weather is dramatic.
Yeah. My vote is Eastern Colorado.
Okay. Probably rapid changes there, too, right?
Yeah. I mean, they can get from 80 to snow in 12 hours out there in the winter.
And they do get tornadoes, and they do get hailstorms.
And gorilla hail. They get gorilla hail in Eastern Colorado. Cindy, people always love to say that phrase, if you don't like the weather, just wait 15 minutes. I've lived in 6 different states in my life, and I swear in all 6 of those states, they say that.
Yeah, they do.
So I think weather changes dramatically in a lot of places. When I lived in Mississippi, it would flip back and forth a lot too. I think the biggest difference there is you just don't get as much extreme winter. But I'd say the Midwest, or I'd have to go with what Taylor said. Eastern Colorado is.
I will add this though, for a temperature change place, probably like Rapid City or Bismarck, because they do get Chinook winds, and they get over 100 degrees every summer, and they get wind chills of 40 below every winter. So those are areas.
Let's take a field trip up there, huh?
Yeah, that'll be fun.
To Bismarck.
So
capital of North Dakota. Yeah, there you go.
All right, Dave, should we ask this question?
Which one?
Okay. In meteorology, what is the difference between a cyclone and a hurricane? How about in basketball?
A cyclone is better than a hurricane. A hurricane's bigger, and it's a big blowhard.
Wow, okay.
I'm sorry. I'm throwing some stuff here. Yeah, I'm a Cyclone fan, Iowa State graduate. Dave is a Miami.
This is hard for me.
He's the U guy.
Yeah.
And he happens to be here in Cyclone country. And
why couldn't this have happened a year ago?
Right?
I mean,
but he's going to Chicago to watch the game. So good luck to the Hurricanes. And you'll say, no, you won't.
Go Cyclones.
Go Cyclones.
Yeah.
We're happy.
Let the best team win. Okay.
Here's the best thing about it. One of us is going to be happy.
Exactly.
That's all that matters.
But to answer the question, there is no difference.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Hurricanes is what they call.
Question or a weather question?
Both.
That was a good
Great
question. Yeah. In the Atlantic, they call it a hurricane. In the Pacific, in the East
Yep.
Pacific, it's a hurricane. West Pacific, it's a typhoon. And then
Australia.
in the Indian Ocean,
Oh, yeah?
it is.
Where do
a
they call
cyclone.
it? A willy willy?
Willy Willy. That's what they call it. I don't know if we can say that on YouTube, but we just but it's a Willy Willy down by Australia. And so that, it's just different.
So, all hurricanes are cyclones.
Yep.
A cyclone's basically
Rotation.
low pressure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
And even tornadoes were called cyclones.
Yeah.
That's why we got our name.
Yeah.
So yeah, cyclones are basically rotation. And yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
No, I was just going to say, I was kind of reading some other questions. Don had a really good one that said, is it common for tornado sirens to malfunction? And that kind of piggybacks off of the story that I did. Yeah, it is fairly common.
More and more, right?
Yeah, well, so I learned that, a single tornado siren can cost $25,000 to $30,000. And for some perspective, the Des Moines Metro has more than 160 tornado sirens. So you think about all that money, and then they're machines just like anything else, but they're kind of outdated, older machines. So the parts are expensive and it's hard to get them. And so a lot of times, they do malfunction. And then it also requires a certain level of human input to get those sirens sounding. It's like a switch. Somebody has to flip it on essentially, and they have multiple points so that one person can't set it off by themselves. But yeah, there's a lot that can go wrong with sirens, which is why they're great tools, but we shouldn't rely on them completely.
Yeah.
It drives home the point to have multiple ways to receive those warnings.
We Are Iowa app right here on the phone. I mean, that's probably the best way. And you also, weather radios are still a good thing, especially while you're sleeping and that.
Yeah.
Because you can program a weather radio for your county. So you're not, it used to be, it would go off all night because there's warnings going on. But now you can program it just for Polk County or just for Dallas County or whatever.
Story County.
Or Story County.
Pick your place. You pick your place.
Yeah, we're not partial to any county.
No. Humboldt County. Let's go.
There you go.
All right.
So any other YouTube questions or anything?
Make sure we get to those.
I like this one from Don, too. What kinds of clouds can signal severe weather, if any?
Well, the shelf cloud ahead of a strong front, gust front. And those are the ones that look really ominous. Those are the ones that scare people off of the baseball field.
Yeah.
Oh
boy, something's coming.
Storm's coming. Everybody sees the shelf cloud and they see the rain behind it, which is just that homogeneous looking gray. And if it turns green, people say, well, it's hail, and it usually is. It kind of does a refraction, kind of makes it a bit green back there if you get some hail. So yeah, I'd say shelf cloud. But
that happened in early July for that hail.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you could see the green.
Yeah.
Sorry, Taylor.
Cumulonimbus.
The big
personal fan of that. Yep, the big billowing, puffy clouds that go high and high up in the sky. That's you're going to see that in any thunderstorm. So, but of course.
I remember on December 15th in the morning, there's a lot of altocumulus. The mid-level kind of. Sometimes you get that with hurricane outflows too, which makes sense. Low pressure. That those mid-level, they look like those, the fair weather clouds you would see on a nice day, but they're higher up in the atmosphere. Think of them as like the exhaust of the low pressure system. So.
And they a lot of times they're the precursor of a stormy time coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Brandon?
Well, you guys named most of the big clouds.
We got the wall cloud. You got the wall cloud.
Well, yeah, wall cloud should signal to you that there's some big time severe weather coming immediately. A wall cloud is like the it's like the first step to get a tornado essentially in a thunderstorm. You would have kind of a 3-step process: wall cloud, funnel cloud, tornado.
Yeah.
And the wall cloud is what you're going to start to notice that's rotating a little bit in a severe thunderstorm. And when you see that rotating wall cloud, it's usually a really good indication that we're either about to have a funnel cloud or we are quite possibly going to have a tornado that drops and touches the ground. I also think this one's not as common, but roll clouds, which kind of resemble shelf clouds a little bit, but they're more tubular looking. They look like I don't know how to describe it. They roll. They look like a big long paper towel roll essentially.
They're literally doing this as it gets toward you.
Yeah. We don't see those quite as much, but they do happen.
Why do most severe weather events happen during the afternoon and evening? Well, that's a pretty easy one because thunderstorms and severe weather usually rely on what we call CAPE, which is available energy in the atmosphere, so convective available potential energy. And it's the heating, and it's heat and humidity. And when is it hot and humid?
Afternoon and
late afternoon and an early evening. And the evening has the advantage of above the storm it starts to cool a little bit, and then down below it's still very warm and humid, so you get some cooling aloft and you create more instability, or basically the air wants to rise even more, even faster. So anywhere between 3 p.m. and 10 p.m., that's when you get most tornadoes actually. I think about 75% of tornadoes happen between 3 p.m. and 10 p.m. because of that very fact.
August 10th, 2020 would like a word with you.
Yeah, right.
Well, and that's to say,
yeah, there's always exceptions.
Yeah.
There's always exceptions. Taylor could tell you stories about
that's all it's
the
been lately.
EF2 tornado that happened in the middle of the night in Adair. In, was that 2019, Taylor?
Yes. Yep. April.
Yeah.
No, it was May 2019.
And
it was in May.
Yeah, and that goes to the point that lately, the last 2 years, it's weather gone wild. I mean, there should be videos out about this. Maybe that's a marketing.
There you go.
Weather gone wild. But it's not normal weather anymore. When do we have June tornadoes? That's our most likely month to have tornadoes. And tell me the last time we had an outbreak in June. No one knows.
It's been a while since I've worked here. Most of our
it's always
big
in
outbreaks.
some weird month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The weather is strange now, guys. I mean, I've been watching it while in my mid 50s now, but been studying the weather. Went to Iowa State University for 40 years or so here in Iowa, and it's just gotten weird.
Yeah.
Weird weather.
Well, when you get what happened on December 15th, I mean, that was the weirdest of the weird. The derecho.
Yeah, the March 5th wasn't as weird. It was just extreme.
Yeah.
It was the right setup. It was one of those what we call high shear, low cape days.
Yeah, so maybe explain that in terms they could understand. But
yeah, we kind of unpacked this a little bit in the,
it wasn't a warm, humid day.
No, it was unfortunately, I was out of town that day. We got the upper 60s, I think, for the highs. Mid to upper.
Bring Brandon in. Bring Brandon in again. What was our high?
I feel like I could go back and look, but I really think it was only about 62 for the high. And
I think
was
so.
Very briefly
Wow.
that day. We came up short. I know that.
That even further emphasizes the high shear, low cape days.
So high shear means a lot of wind.
A lot of wind, a lot of rotation.
Rotational.
Easy, I want to say easier conditions for what we call mesocyclones, or broad areas of rotation to form, which are the precursor to wall clouds, which we talked about.
Yeah. So you think of it, you get a broad area of rotation inside the thunderstorm, the mesocyclone or whatever, the supercell. And then it's like a skater that tightens up. So when the skater's got his or her arms out and they tighten up, that's what the thunderstorm does. All that energy gets concentrated at the updraft of the storm, and you get yourself a big tornado sometimes.
Yeah.
So guys, a question that I got a lot at the state fair last year, and that always kind of comes up, is people like to ask me or ask us, what's worse, tornadoes or damaging winds? And I always say they both can be equally bad. It just kind of depends on the setup. I would not ever say that one is worse than the other. People kind of automatically assume that a tornado is worse because it's more visually right there. You can see it, and it often causes more visual damage. But the derechos, the majority of the damage that we saw, especially in August 2020, Taylor, I don't think we had any confirmed tornadoes on August 10th, did we? Maybe
here,
one or two.
Wisconsin, I think.
Yeah, it was all wind.
Into Illinois as well. Yeah, that was a strictly straight line wind event, and you think about that, that was covering all of central Iowa. Tornadoes are like the hair in the living room, right?
It's a tiny little path. This was a wide path.
Yeah, and it ended up being extremely destructive.
It's kind of like, you got the hurricane, which affects a large area versus a tornado affects a small area. So, sometimes damaging winds are the worst because that was the most expensive thunderstorm complex ever in the United States, and it might even rival some hurricanes. I don't know. It was a big deal.
It was a land cane. I mean,
it was a land cane. Yeah.
And just quick on hurricanes, the deadliest hazard in hurricanes is not damaging winds. It's storm surge.
Storm surge.
It's what the winds do to the water. So sometimes it's not the most obvious thing, the most dangerous hazard.
Yeah.
Like in actuality, tornadoes, damaging winds, hail, it's flooding. That's the most dangerous.
Flooding. Yeah, we talked about that in our special. And to go back to your point there, usually when you're looking at a hurricane, they show the hurricane this big, right? But the maximum winds are down near the eye of the hurricane.
In the eye wall, yeah.
In the eye wall. So it is that water that comes in that causes so many problems. And we've all seen flooding. And flooding to me is the worst weather to cover. I mean, obviously tornadoes and that, but flooding just doesn't go away.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be with you for weeks and months. So,
Brad, would you say that that's your least favorite weather to forecast?
yeah, I wouldn't want to. You know, droughts. It's a sad thing too. It's like when the farmers need rain and you're forecasting no rain. But the other side of the coin, if it's flooding and you're forecasting more rain, it's just kind of depressing sometimes.
Yeah, because
you can't do anything about it. You're the bearer of bad news, basically. Yeah.
Right.
It's almost like you can't.
I think my least favorite thing to forecast is probably ice.
Oh yeah.
I just don't, because ice just, nobody likes ice. There's nothing good about it, except that maybe it closes schools down and kids get to stay home. But, it's not like snow. You can't go play in it. You can't, do anything fun with it. And then ice also can throw off winter forecasts so much because, we've seen time and time again if it just switches over briefly. So I think that's my least favorite. But I also don't like fog. I talk about that a lot. Fog is annoying.
Fog's tricky sometimes
Fog is
too.
tough.
Yeah.
Brandon's got the warning. Brandon's got
the worst of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He walks in and it's all foggy.
Well, trying to predict when that fog moves out exactly is really tough when it's going to mix up.
Do you have any more there? I've got one here if you don't. But.
Cindy asks, how do I like living in Iowa? I love it. I mean, the weather is December 15th. I mean, it just keeps you on your toes.
Yeah,
December 15th, January 15th, March.
I mean, we never want severe weather, but we like thunderstorms. We like active weather. I mean, we don't want boring weather all the time. So that's one of the reasons you came here is just for the active weather. Not necessarily terrible, severe weather though.
It's inevitable. I mean, you have to look at it. It's just inevitable.
It is inevitable.
I mean,
you
want to go to Reno, go to the biggest little city on earth, or go to Vegas.
Yeah.
For the boring weather.
Yeah.
So.
Has anyone ever
I could do without.
Go ahead.
I could do without less weather like today.
Yeah.
Gray, 30s, wind.
Hard pass.
Yeah.
Easy to forecast, but not fun.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a tornado in person? Do you like to go storm chasing? Well, I chased in college, and now that once I became a chief, I can't go chasing anymore. I'm always in the studio. But in college, first time out, we saw a small tornado form. We were out in Greene County, west of Ames, and we ran to this lady's house. It was in the middle of nowhere, right, on a gravel road. We're knocking on her door trying to get, she's in there knitting. She's literally an old lady knitting inside, tornado outside. We're trying to get her attention, and she comes to the door. We say, can we go, there's a tornado here. You have a basement? She goes, well, it's kind of dirty down there. And she's kind of like, she's acting really casual. And by the time we got her attention and got in the house, the thing had already passed, and we didn't get hit, but it was just like, we were seeking shelter at that point at a farmhouse, and that was the one and only time. But I know you've chased a lot.
Yeah. By the way, we need to get you out to storm chase one of these days.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I know.
Just we'll cover for you for
Somebody
Oh,
else
you will? I get to go chase?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Okay.
Brandon and I will go, and you guys can stay here.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm waiting for a Saturday severe weather event in like Kansas, so that I can.
You can go down there and chase.
Yeah, I'll call up Taylor and Brad and sorry, Dave, you'll have to stay behind.
I think Taylor's done the most chasing though.
Yeah.
Actually.
So I
probably
saw my first tornado in 2009 in Aurora, Nebraska. That was in EF2.
Yeah.
I've probably seen a dozen tornadoes or so. In 2012, I met my wife storm chasing.
I was going to say that.
There you go.
Long story there, but it was part of a research project.
She's an EF10, if you know what I mean. Weather joke there.
She is.
Category 10.
Yeah, whatever. How about you, Dave? Any tornadoes?
I have never seen a tornado.
We got to get him out. Maybe you and I go chase.
Until I can see a tornado, you're stuck over there in front of that.
Oh, really?
Brandon, have you seen one?
Yeah, I've seen one.
Yeah.
One tornado. It was outside of a town called Louisville, Mississippi. But I didn't do a whole lot of chasing either. That was in April of 2014.
Okay.
I did a little bit of chasing when I was in college, but not a ton. And that just happened to be a day that we had a severe weather risk in Mississippi. And I went to Mississippi State, and classes were canceled that day because I think we were under, I don't know if it was a high risk. It was definitely a moderate risk day.
Okay.
All right, we got one or two more questions.
You got a couple more here?
One from YouTube. From Don, how do storms lose steam when going over a certain area, then gain it back in a different area?
Tornadoes?
Just storms in general.
Storms,
yeah.
Well, storms sometimes cycle, and it's kind of like breathing, I guess you could say, or they have a weak spell. They might lose their inflow for a while, but we've seen this happen quite a bit. They cycle.
Yeah, for tornadoes. A lot of storms, they'll develop, the downdraft will kind of kill that storm. It'll push out this cool boundary ahead of it that will be like a mini cold front that will spark new storms out ahead of it. So, you know, if you happen to be kind of in between the dying storm and the newly developing storm, then it might seem like it's skipping over you, but that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Kind of like with hurricanes, Dave would speak to this too. Storms, especially like tornadoes and hurricanes, they don't really like a lot of interaction with things.
Yeah.
And so, you know, hurricanes, the minute they hit land, they will eventually start to lose some of their steam and lose their momentum just because they don't like all of that interaction with everything that we've got on land, buildings, trees, things.
Even Cuba. I mean, Cuba's a small, country, but it has big mountains.
That's what happened to Hurricane Irma back in 2017.
Yeah.
Because Hurricane Irma was going to be the next Hurricane Andrew for Miami.
But Cuba saved it.
But it flipped Cuba, and it hit the tall mountains on the northern side of Cuba. And
that's a good thing.
That's what happened,
You say you have one more on there? We got a little bit of time.
Cindy asked if y'all went storm chasing, and I guess we answered
we
that one
kind of
already.
answered that. Here's a derecho question. Will we have another derecho anytime this year? Any predictions? Did derechos exist before August 2020?
Yes.
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 Probably since the dawn of time, but
no, it was a University of Iowa professor that invented the term. Can't remember when. It was 1800s, I think.
I know, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of terms like, the polar vortex. People freaked out, 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Polar vortex, we've been using that term in meteorology forever. And same way with derecho. It's just, it never got to the public's ear until recently, I think.
We need to put a new term out there.
Well, the more recent one that has been picked up by a lot of national outlets, but it's one that's been around forever too, is bombogenesis.
Oh, yeah.
And bomb cyclones. They love to talk about that.
Do.
And that's,
It's like those headline grabbing terms,
That's a big word. Let's use it.
Yeah, let's use that one. That gets everybody's attention out there. So I guess we're going to wrap things up unless there's any more questions coming.
There's one more good one, Dave, from Cindy.
Yeah. How long does a tornado stay on the ground? What is the longest track a tornado has stayed on the ground?
Start with the
in Iowa.
Oh, in Iowa? Well, that might be recently. Was that the record?
No. I think the record in Iowa is over 100 miles. I can't remember the exact length. This recent one from Winterset to Newton was about 70 miles. That was the longest track since 1984, right? Yeah.
That's right.
So it's rare for them to be that long.
Most are a mile or less.
Yeah. They'll touch down briefly and go right back up.
The thing about tornadoes.
I think the longest.
Yeah, go ahead.
The longest in the country is still the tri-state tornado, right?
The Mayfield tornado almost got it, but it lifted for a little bit. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So tri-state was Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. Am I right in that?
Yeah. So
I think so. Yeah.
So to be
tri-state, because there was one that hit Xenia, Ohio. Too,
that's a different
really
one.
Sad.
That was an F5, but that was a different one, yeah.
So to be certain about it, the long track tornadoes are always big tornadoes.
Yeah.
They're always large tornadoes. And most tornadoes, 70%, 75% tornadoes are EF0s, EF1s, and they are usually a mile or less, and they're
something goes wrong that causes it to lift.
They're just little spin-ups, basically, compared to these big monsters that just plow through anything. Cities, I think about Joplin, Missouri. Was that EF4 or 5?
I think that was a 5.
Joplin was a 5.
Yeah. So that's another case where an EF5 slammed right into the city. I think school was out that day. Was it? But it was. They were so
I think
lucky.
Joplin occurred on a Sunday.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So luckily, because it did it demolished the school. So it's just. So anyways, we were going to plan on going 30 minutes unless the questions kept coming in.
Uno más. One more.
All right.
Not sure if this has been asked, but how does the NWS determine if a tornado watch is going to be issued? The conditions are favorable.
Yeah.
Is the short answer.
That's the short answer. And Storm Prediction Center, they're in Norman, Oklahoma, and we monitor them, and they are considered the experts, although sometimes we often disagree with them.
I think the important...
Because we're the experts, no.
There is a distinction. The Storm Prediction Center is the one who issues a tornado watch.
Yep.
It's not the Des Moines office.
It's not.
The Storm Protection
Right.
Center will work with the local offices,
Good
but
point.
the SPC is in charge of actually issuing the watch.
So the watch
And the
is-
local offices may strongly urge the SPC to get that
Hey, we
watch
need a
out,
watch,
which has happened before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does come down to the watch.
I think we can all say we're really big fans of
SPC.
our local National Weather Service office. The guys in
Yes.
Des Moines, they are awesome. We work with them directly, and I think they do. I think they're great meteorologists, and they analyze the radar very well. They issue warnings very well. Storm Prediction Center, we've got more criticism for them, and hopefully they're not watching us right now. But we've had some criticism of not issuing watches in a timely manner, or not putting us in a category where we could see severe weather. And we all go back to December 15th when we thought we're going to see severe weather on December 15th, and they were like, nah, not so much.
Yeah, 2 days before they weren't. Let's just say the outlooks got upgraded very quickly. In that week. So, if you do have more questions before these fellows wrap it up, if we didn't answer it, you can text them to us still, 515-457-1026, and we will answer them. We'll respond to you. So if there's more questions that we didn't get to here,
so we're just
feel free to ask.
Yeah, we just had a good time making the special. I think it came out okay, and
I'm tired.
Yeah, it was good.
Everybody worked hard, especially Dave and Brandon and Taylor. I just sat back and told them what to do. So, but that's my.
He wrote the package in the cold open.
Yeah. Anyway, so
round of applause for Brad. Hey.
No. So I just want to thank everybody for watching the special, watching Local 5. We are the most accurate. We're trying to hang on to that title for a few more years here, and I'm going to send Brandon to bed so we can get up early tomorrow.
Everyone's singing a lullaby
See you at 5
song.
a.m.
Good night.